to do it. Now, I know something that I'm sure you're aware of, and when you were, before you did this, you were calling, emailing.
Yes.
She didn't have time to talk to you because she was getting her instructions from Nancy. You know, and I've heard somewhere that she's voted with Nancy 90-some% of the time.
She has indeed voted with the Democratic leadership, as she calls them. She calls them leadership votes almost all the time. Anything of any substance, any of these big issues, she's pretty much a guaranteed vote.
Has she broken off on the Palestinian-Israeli situation?
She has actually, almost inexplicably in my mind.
In fact, that's the only area where Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic leadership were by and large one way, and Lois.
Yeah, that's worth talking about a little bit because I honestly don't understand why she's taken this position. So for a little background, in 2006 or whenever the last flare-up was there in Israel, they were lobbing rockets over from Gaza into the Israeli settlements, attacking civilians. And Israelis finally said enough's enough and went in and did some precision airstrikes like we do with laser-guided bombs and that sort of thing, and actually did a very short, quick ground incursion in there to kill terrorists.
Yeah, they lost one man who's still a prisoner.
Well, actually, he got kidnapped.
Okay.
They dug a hole under the fence and grabbed him.
But he's still a prisoner
he's
in
still
Gaza
a prisoner
somewhere.
in Gaza somewhere. That's true. But anyway, during the Gaza event, about 1,300 or so Palestinians died in that thing, and the UN chartered a commission called the Goldstone Commission with a South African guy named Goldstone to head the thing up to go down and see if Israel had committed any war crimes. And they produced this report that was really, really heavily biased in my view and in the view of most of the Congress. And so our Congress, to their credit, went through the report and said, this is inaccurate, this is inaccurate, this is inaccurate, blah, blah, boom. And, oh, by the way, we're 100% behind the Israelis. They have the right to defend themselves, et cetera. And 350 or so congresspeople, so that meant a lot of Democrats, voted for that. And she was one of a handful that actually went and made a floor speech against the motion and voted against it. And you can read her floor speech, and I honestly have no idea what point she was trying to make in that thing. It really didn't make any sense. But why she would side with them in that regard, I really don't understand. And she's been fairly antagonistic. The Hoyer-Cantor bill, I believe, she wouldn't support either. So, I know that a lot of the local Jewish communities unhappy with her.
It may go back to her marriage, and her husband was a professor of religious science at UCSB who became very involved in the Vietnam veterans, and he continued, to be honest, and I have to say, both he and she in some ways weren't terribly bright. He got snookered by people who for several years came to be Vietnam veterans with their medals who never saw Vietnam, and he had them on stage in his seminars, and he was taken in by them, and it was an embarrassment.
Oh.
And she's a nice lady, but she's not a genius.
Well, I can't speak to her, intelligence, and she's very pleasant. I've met her several times, and I believe she's well-intentioned. I think she believes she's doing the right thing, but she's not.
That's what you describe. It's one of the few speeches she's given on the floor, and as you say, it's not very
but again, that's
understandable.
something that she should explain to people. Why are you doing these things?
Israel's our bastion of freedom and the only democracy there.
And our only real true ally over there as well. And actually, let's talk a little bit about foreign affairs, which brings us around to that a little bit. One thing that really concerns me with this administration is they've taken this approach that is not going to work, and we already can see it's not working. This basically antagonizing our allies and embracing our enemies. And they really went after the Israelis pretty hard. I think they're finally figuring out that that's not working and are backing off of that. But
they insulted a hero, Prime Minister
Netanyahu. He comes and gives them a list of demands and leaves them, doesn't give them a state dinner or anything like. Really insulting, really childish, candidly, the way that they handle that. And in any event, but antagonizing the Israelis and try to tie their hands down while we've basically been just sitting there observing Iran in the process of trying to build a nuclear weapon. And doing nothing, we're guaranteeing a war over there with this kind of, this passive, with our enemies and aggressive with our allies kind of response. I mean, when you have the French, of all people, telling us that we need to be tougher on this, you know that that things aren't right. And his foreign policy is not working at all. And
what do you think the odds are? Iraq, Syria, both countries had a nuclear power plant in the stage of being ready to be fueled, and the Israelis took it out. Iran has a nuclear power plant, and in the next 7 days it will be refueled. I mean, be fueled. Yeah. What do you think the odds are that Israel will hit?
Honestly, I don't know. The Israelis are going to do what they're going to do. They have a right to defend themselves. And when you have the leader of a country that's trying to develop nuclear weapons threatening to wipe you off the map every other week, I think that's something that you have to take seriously. And they do. What their intelligence is telling them they need to do. And the reactor creating power isn't really the problem. It's all the underground labs and all this sort of thing that's really the issue there. So what the Israelis do, I don't know, but they will defend themselves at some point. And we'll see what happens. I'm sure the Saudis will give them a green light to attack, because there's absolutely nothing good that can come from the Iranians having a nuclear weapon. Nothing.
The anti-Semitism, when you were a child, I was still a little older, 67, 72, the cry of Israel was never again.
Yeah.
And people forget what it was never again about, the Holocaust, and they forget that there are still people who just want to destroy, not Israel, but Jews, anywhere they can. And there's another group, I think, we have to fear that wants to destroy Christians, too, anywhere they can. We probably won't have time to talk about Muslim extremism tonight, but let's talk. You were talking about the foreign affairs, and something struck me. I mean, the president's even been insulting to the British. Return Churchill's. I mean, just stupid things.
Yeah, I don't get it. I really don't.
Do you see the only part of foreign affairs that he seems to be handling correctly is, and I don't think he would, except it was his criticism of George Bush, and that is the real war is Afghanistan. If he hadn't said that, I don't think he'd be fighting the war in Afghanistan.
Well, honestly, I don't know. It doesn't seem like his heart's in it. There's a lot of people that want to get out of Afghanistan, and I can understand why. It doesn't appear to be going great, and all these things, but there's multiple considerations. And I'm sure what happened to President Obama, he got in there and started getting all these briefs. And, it's easy, to have these little one-liners and quips about, pulling out and doing that and all these things. But when you get in the real world, things aren't quite so black and white. And I'm sure when he got there and he saw the actual intelligence and all the things that we aren't privy to, that he made a, probably a rational decision. We just can't pull out. That would be irresponsible in the extreme. And we a lot of people are like, oh, we're just wasting money, we can't win, Alexander the Great lost, the Russians lost, all these things, and some of that is true. However, there's two sides of the story. There's the cost of doing something, and there's the cost of not doing something as well. And we already have a data point, what happens when we leave you know, that part of the world to their own devices. And
9/11.
we had 9/11. We ended up with thousands of dead Americans and literally trillions of dollars of economic disruption. You know, beyond just the people that died, but not only the physical damage, but how it's changed our economy and how it's changed you know, everything we do. You know, shoes at the airport, all these different things.